I am going to give indie developers the most powerful tool to be the absolute most proficient they can possibly be. And that is engage the community. So now I've recently been talking a lot about early access and kind of our trials through it. And I want to say early access was amazing for the Anacrusis because we started out rough. That was always our ideal release, was to be rough so that we could build with the community over time. So 2 years later, 56 updates later, I think 1.0 is going to be our 57th or 58th update. We may do an update Friday. And that let us make the game so much better, but it made it make it so much better not by throwing more money at it, not by hiring up 500 people, not by like a whole bunch of other ways we could have done it. We did it by listening to the community and getting that feedback and iterating. And that's a really important part of it is they tell you something, you say something, and they're not going to design the game for you, but they're going to give you the feedback of their experience and lived experience with that, right? We've all heard that a million times now. But the important part to that then is that you're interpreting what you think the problem is, what really needs to happen, and then you put it into the world, and then they give you feedback. And sometimes that feedback has to be remove that. You've made a mistake. That's bad. Sometimes it's like more of that. Sometimes it's like, hey, have you thought of this? Hey, that made me think of this, right? That's a powerful set of phrases. But you've got to be willing to do that. So here's where the rub comes with early access. With that, now, there's exceptions abound. Yes, you can point to a million of them, and I'd say some of them are a lot earlier. Right now, people's expectations in early access are that the game should be more complete. And now they're saying that because they've been burned. I don't blame the people there in early access, right? The expectation is that it needs to be there enough that it's a full game because they've been burned. They've been burned by partial releases that never get finished. So I understand that, right? But you get to looky-loos and all of that, right? And you're just trying to talk to that community that is giving you this great feedback, this great, ability to focus on what you're working on. And partially, I am haunted by scavenger mode in Left 4 Dead 2. Scavenger mode in Left 4 Dead 2, for those of you who don't know, and it's okay if you don't know this mode, even if you've played the game, is nobody plays it. We played it internally. We liked it internally. It was fun, but we never did public playtests with it. We were tight on time on that project. We were playtesting other things. People playtested the game, and I'm sure they actually playtested scavenge mode, but we didn't do it like, and now let's stop and let's focus, and this is scavenge mode. Scavenge mode was a failure. It was a failure because of how people played it was different than how we played it, and the expectations around that. Right now, if you have 8 friends and you can play it, it's a fun mode, right? But it's got to be under those conditions and with people you know. It is not a good pickup game out in the wild. And that has always haunted me of like, we should have included the community earlier. We should have included the community earlier. We actually, all through that project, actually tested stuff with people up to launch, like that didn't know that we were testing on this as a way to get feedback. And that helped with some of it. But definitely, like, I wish we could have had that. And so for us, the Anacrusis, we went from bad reviews to positive reviews by listening to that community. And we did that with, like, you would think our team is 100 times the size it is. We're 4 people right now. We've been 4 people for over a year. And yet we're updating that frequently and making the game that much better and adding verses and all of that. And we could do that because we're listening to the community and we're not just going off on wild goose chases. Now you can say, hey, the wild goose chases are where you create the crazy and the fun. Yes, and that was our hope as we launch it in December 5th, that we build this platform that we can then build on and go do more. And it's also my hope as I go do future projects, and which is why I was talking about early access at all, was I want to include the community earlier. I don't want to wait till early access. But the problem is I can't use early access anymore because of how it's perceived. It's going to get reviewed. It's going to get scrutinized. I'm going to get all these people outside of the game, outside of the community screaming and yelling. Valve's actually created a bunch of tools to let you do private betas for extended periods, private play tests, and a whole bunch of other stuff. That's how I would do it now. I would not go through early access. I would go through these other programs so that we could do it as soon as possible. Like there's some people I follow on Patreon, right, where you give them $5 a month and you get to be in their diverse design meeting when they're first starting the game. Like, to me, that would be super exciting. That'd be super cool. And man, I know every single senior game developer right now is like, you're crazy. That would be horrible. Oh my God, all the noise. Learn to not listen to that noise and learn to listen to the good ideas inside of it. This is the benefit of me not being very bright, is I have to do that because I have to be listening to other people because they're going to come up with the better ideas than my own brain's going to, right? And so getting all of those people into the room and starting that process. And you can never start from zero. You always have to start somewhere, right? Gabe and I once got in an argument over where concept designs come from. And this is some early concepting on, honestly, Counter-Strike 2, which you will never see. And I said, well, it always has to come from random somewhere. Now, you can talk about like, oh, hey, these are the things. Like, you can come up with 10 things and you're going to pick them and you're going to study them and you're going to do market research. But still, why those 10 things? Why are you making a video game? Why are you like, sure, there's all these things that came. And so it's not really random in the sense of like random. It's random in the sense of like, you got here. How did you get here? Well, that's going to decide what you're doing a lot of times, right? And so you can't start from zero. So you're going to have to come into that room with something. And then how do you design out of that? How do you do that with the community? And so how early can you bring the community in, right? I've played stuff that I have a hard time understanding of where the fun is yet or how this is going to go or, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. Because I didn't know the team and I didn't know if they were going to be able to pull it out. I'm also, I think, pretty good at looking early and going, okay, this is the path, and I get these weird weapons and all of that because it's all going to get polished. So that is why I was talking about early access. As we get to our launch, I was reflecting back and going, you know what? The early access, I wish we did not have to do. It's a two-edged sword, right? I both wish we didn't have to have the public scrutiny, but we could have the large community, right? Like, I want to include as much of the community as early as possible, but not the entire world. And I'm not sure how to do that. And this is the weird thing where if I post this on YouTube, I will get negative comments around this in a way that is trying to be hurtful to me. Because YouTube, I don't know how it chooses to show stuff, I'll admit. But TikTok, I will get positive comments around this and a good discussion. And that's because those are like-minded people and it figures out whatever the algorithm can see into our brains that you guys will like this and you want to be part of this discussion. How do I do that with a community, right? And I think you have to do that quietly and behind closed doors a little bit, which I hate privacy. Like that way. I like privacy, don't get me wrong. But like that way, the being secretive, not privacy, I guess. But like, how do you do that? And so that's what I was reflecting on and thinking about. I mean, for the Anacrusis itself, coming out December 5th, early access has been great. There has been good and bad out of it, but overall, the amount of work we got done and where we're at launch, like, it is a good game. It is a better version of Versus than Left 4 Dead. 100%. If you ask me to play Left 4 Dead 2 or Anacrusis Versus, and I've worked on both, I'm going to pick Anacrusis Versus just because this is what we put into the game and what goes here. Now it's just about more content to play it on, more maps and all of that. But yeah, so that's why I was talking about early access, because it's both been the good and the bad and kind of just thinking about it and wanting to share that with the community. As I often talk to a lot of other devs, and I've been talking to another dev that morning and we were talking about early access and they were trying to decide if they should do it. And I was like, well, probably not, because this is what you want to do. So yeah, there we go. Which is just this weird thing again of like, I start talking about any of this stuff, and it's this narrow tightrope always for me now to talk about it, because someone's going to frame it as Valve says, someone else is going to come in and be mad that I said something about this at all, because I guess I'm not, I don't know, which is why I like making TikTok videos, but I still post these on YouTube, where you can't block people. I don't know, right? Like, it is this weird thing of trying to work and engage the community and be honest and have real conversations versus the cleaned up PR focused, I would have done my hair better. Probably want to eaten something with powdered sugar on it. Kind of thing you normally get, right? And so I think about that a lot. I think about that as we go to launch of like, how do we talk about this launch in a way that doesn't feel manufactured, that doesn't feel a product of PR, but instead is an honest discussion of it. So I've been trying to do that. And that's what I try to do all the social media things and hear what I'm doing again. So there you go. That's where we are. And again, I'm not telling you not to do early access or to do it, but just giving you my frame of reference and how I've been thinking about it so that you could put that into your brain and add it for your decision-making process. Thanks.